I never thought my life would come to this. Sitting here, confessing something I swore I'd take to my grave. But that night changed everything, and I can't stop replaying it in my mind. For years, I'd felt invisible in my own home. My husband buried himself in work, always another late meeting, another excuse. Our marriage had become cold, mechanical. We barely spoke about anything but bills and chores. Intimacy? I couldn't even remember the last time he'd touched me like he meant it. At some point, I stopped expecting it. I told myself this was just marriage, this was just how life went after a while. When his son moved in last year, I hardly noticed him at first. He was quiet, polite to a fault, the kind of boy who never made a fuss. He'd come home from his classes, retreat to his room, and that was it. I tried to be friendly at dinner, but he always avoided my eyes, answering in short sentences. He was shy, I thought. Sweet. Completely harmless. Over time, though, I started to see more of him. A little taller, filling out his frame. His hair falling into his eyes in a way that reminded me of when my husband and I first met, back when he was young and full of life. It's hard to explain exactly when I noticed him as something more than my stepson. That evening was quiet, like every other. My husband had left on yet another trip, barely glancing up from his phone as he kissed my cheek and walked out the door. He didn't even say goodbye to his son. I poured myself a glass of wine and went to the living room, where he was already sitting, scrolling through his phone. He looked up when I came in, and for the first time, he didn't look away right away. His gaze stayed on me, just a beat longer than usual. Something about that made my stomach flutter, and I hated myself for noticing. We sat together, watching something on TV, the usual small talk at first. But I caught him glancing at me out of the corner of his eye. Every time I turned my head, he'd look down, fidgeting. I told myself I was imagining it, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the air between us was different. Heavy somehow. Maybe it was the wine, or maybe it was just years of loneliness catching up with me. But that night, for the first time in years, I felt seen. I don't know why I stayed there, so close to him, instead of going to bed like I usually would. The silence between us wasn't uncomfortable anymore. It felt charged, like we were both waiting for something to happen but too afraid to name it. I asked him how school was going, and for once, he actually opened up. He told me he felt out of place, like nobody really noticed him. That no one ever cared enough to ask how he was doing. His voice cracked a little when he said it, and my chest tightened. I told him I understood more than he knew. That I'd been feeling invisible too. We looked at each other for a long moment, and it was like something unspoken passed between us. He laughed nervously after that, looking down at his hands, and I noticed his knuckles were white from how hard he was gripping them. I reached over without thinking and placed my hand on his. Just a simple, gentle gesture, but the way he looked at me after that, like I'd just given him something he'd been starved for, made my breath catch. His fingers loosened under mine, and then, slowly, he turned his hand over and laced his fingers with mine. Neither of us said anything. I should have pulled away. I should have stood up and ended it right there. But I didn't. My heart was hammering, my palms were sweating, and all I could think about was how long it had been since someone touched me like I mattered. His thumb brushed over my knuckles, tentative at first, then firmer, almost possessive. I looked down at our hands, and then back at him. He was staring at me, and when our eyes met, he didn't look away this time. He swallowed hard, his chest rising and falling faster, and in a low, shaky voice he said I looked beautiful tonight. No one had called me that in years. The way he said it, quiet, but full of longing, made something inside me unravel. My face felt hot, and I couldn't stop myself from smiling a little, though I hated myself for it. I let my hand stay in his, feeling his warmth, feeling his fingers tighten around mine as though he couldn't bear to let go. My whole body felt alive, electric. Every second that passed, the line between right and wrong started to blur, and I couldn't tell anymore which side of it I wanted to be on. I knew I should have stopped. Every part of me screamed that this was wrong, that we'd already gone too far. But when his hand slid higher up my thigh, I didn't push it away. My breath caught in my throat, and I froze, waiting to see what he'd do next. He didn't look nervous anymore. His shyness was gone, replaced by something more certain, almost bold. His fingers pressed into my skin like he was claiming me, and my heart pounded so hard I thought it might give me away. When he leaned closer, I could feel the heat of him, and I whispered his name in protest, but it came out weaker than I meant it to. He hesitated just for a second, then whispered that he'd wanted this for so long, that he couldn't stop thinking about me. Hearing that from him, someone who'd always seemed so timid, lit something inside me I didn't know was there. His lips brushed against my cheek, my jaw, and then finally, he kissed me. It wasn't soft or shy. It was hungry, like he'd been holding himself back for months and couldn't anymore. I gave in before I could even think about it. My hands moved to his shoulders, pulling him closer, feeling the tension in his muscles. He kissed me harder, deeper, and I let him. Every thought of guilt was drowned out by the way he made me feel, wanted, desired, alive. His hands roamed over me, bolder now, and I didn't stop them. I didn't want to. Somehow we were both breathless, frantic, tugging at each other as though we'd explode if we didn't have more. He whispered things I didn't expect to hear from him, telling me how long he'd imagined this, how much he'd wanted to touch me. His words were low and raw, and they made my skin burn. I couldn't remember the last time anyone spoke to me like that. In those moments, nothing else existed. Not my husband, not the years of disappointment, not the consequences. Just his hands, his lips, his body pressed against mine. He wasn't shy anymore. He took control like he'd done this 100 times, and I let him. Every nerve in my body screamed for more, and I gave him everything, telling myself it would only be this once, even though deep down I already knew that was a lie. After it was over, the weight of what we'd done hit me all at once. I didn't say anything at first. My heart was still racing, but now it was from panic as much as it was from what I'd just felt. He didn't say anything either. For the first time all night, he looked unsure again, like he was afraid of what came next. I pulled myself away slowly, needing space to breathe, needing to think. My body still felt warm from him, but my mind was already spinning, replaying every second of it, trying to convince myself it hadn't really happened. I stood there for a long time, trying to calm the storm inside me. A dozen emotions tangled together, shame, guilty, fear, but underneath it all was something I couldn't deny. Satisfaction. Even as I told myself I regretted it, a part of me kept remembering the way he looked at me, the way he touched me, how he made me feel alive in a way I hadn't in years. It scared me how much I wanted to hold on to that feeling, even knowing what it cost. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, but steady. He said he didn't regret it. That he'd wanted me for so long and didn't care what happened now. The look in his eyes when he said it almost broke me. Because I believed him. And it scared me how much I wanted to believe him. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I just stood there, staring at him, caught between everything I was supposed to feel and everything I actually did. Later that night, when I was alone, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying it over and over, every word, every touch. I kept thinking about the way he surprised me, how he wasn't the shy boy I thought I knew. I wondered what it said about me that I let it happen, that a part of me still wanted more. The guilt was there, heavy and constant, but it didn't erase the desire. It didn't erase the way he made me feel seen. By morning, we didn't even look at each other. But the silence between us was different now, full of something unspoken. Something dangerous. I don't know what comes next. I don't know if I can ever forgive myself. But I know one thing. That night changed everything. And no matter how hard I try, I can't stop thinking about him. Or the way he took the lead.